Hi everyone. So I was sitting downstairs and reading because they're doing repairs in the building. So I was getting a headache. So I thought, let me go down and sit and read. It was a little too hot to sit upstairs today with the fires, the smoke from the fires. So I didn't stay there. So today I wanted to look at this chapter. I did another chapter of this, Your Roadmap for Success by John Maxwell. And the principles are very similar to the principles that we learn when we train to become spiritual directors. So in the Ignatian tradition, when you're looking at where is God calling you or what is it that's opening for you, often you find that if doors are closing, if things are not going the way that you want, it could be that God wants you somewhere else, or it could be injustice, it could be something that needs to change in society. And we look at always being part of community, not being isolated, not being alone, being integrated, because that's what Jesus did. Whenever he healed, whenever he raised people from the dead, whenever he was out in ministry, praying, it was always so that there could be a restoration and people being integrated into community. And John Maxwell's chapter that I did today on how do I handle detours is very similar. So he's basically saying that we have to think of failures or areas where we need to grow as mileage markers. We need to look at and appreciate the value of what we learn along the way. We need to look at, sometimes we take things personally. We think that it's only happening to us, or our family thinks that we are the problem. It's only happening to me. But that's not the case. Usually it's that they're only seeing it happen to me, but they don't know about how many hundreds of others are going through the same thing. So we don't take things personally. We look at it as a signal to change direction. Unfortunately, with the way our world is going now, I don't know how we're going to change direction, because the things that are coming up now, the child poverty in Canada, in England, across the globe, it's going back to the 1800s. Children are living in rat-infested homes. They're living in homes that are damp. And we went through that in Zimbabwe. There were rats in the ceiling. We had to put rat traps. We went to bed without food. So as life changes and as life progresses and we have education, we have skills to offer, we don't expect our families to be dealing with the same things that we went through. But the way life is going now, that's what's happening. And it's happening across the globe. And it's happening because of the World Economic Forum, corruption, infiltration. That's why it's happening. But if people look at our lives, they only see it happening to me. And so they say, this is happening to you. And really and truly, it's not only happening to me. It's happening to millions of people across the globe. So similar to what St. Ignatian says, we have to redirect our lives. We have to look at how can we change things, how can we help to make things better. And we have to also be able to look at our failures and ask why this is happening, not who. So it's not about Belinda. It's about why is this happening over and over and over. And some of it is injustice. Some of it is what Canada accepts. And we've seen that with Amnesty International. We've seen it with the United Nations calling out Justin Trudeau. We've seen it on his trips to India, where he was basically drugged, and the Indian government was calling him out on it. We've even seen it in the Conservative Party, where Premier Ford's brother was an embarrassment for us. So we have to ask what circumstances or what is it that people are creating And what is it that we can do to change it? Did I actually fail? Or are people's expectations unrealistically high, given the current circumstances in the country? And how can I turn that failure into success? So for me, this is not the first time I've landed up broke and destitute. Because basically I have done all the right things. I've registered with agencies, I've applied for jobs, I've reached out to many of the priests, the religious I know, telling them that I'm looking for work. It's not only me in this situation. There are many, many of us in Canada in similar situations. And we cannot do good, we cannot be there for others if our own needs are not met. You can't pour from an empty cup. And the fact that this keeps happening in Canada shows you that there's a structural injustice problem. And we can learn from the past. We can learn from what they did in the past. I know they brought in things like a basic income. They put supports in place temporarily. The problem is that the banks have unrealistic expectations. So they're saying how many people are going to default on their mortgages. And they're telling people to save. Well, how are people supposed to save if you don't have a job and you don't have an income coming in and wages are stagnant and costs are going up? So I'm not the one that's unrealistic. The banks are unrealistic because they're living in a dream world where they expect you to save every month, put away some of your money, and on minimum wage, make ends meet. So I'm not the one that's unrealistic. How can my experience help others someday to keep from failing? Well, it only comes about when there is pushback, when people start speaking up, when people within the police force start calling it out. The corruption, the greed, within, the change has to come from within. And when we raise our voices and we tell you where the problems are, instead of letting us go, you should be able to help us. You should be able to help us keep our jobs, protect our families. But the banks are not doing that, and neither is the church. Neither the institutions are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's why people like me are getting hurt. So I've already covered this, don't let failure keep you down. I think even if we're disabled, even if we're injured, like St. Ignatius was injured, we know that God is with us. And knowing that and having that foundation of faith can change us and it can help us. The same thing that John Maxwell is saying here in his book. He's saying that a college friend of his used to say, I'm never down, I'm either up or getting up. We're human beings. You can't expect us to constantly have setbacks, constantly have challenges, and not expect our mental health to break down, not expect our bodies to break down. God didn't design us for that. He designed us to be in community. He designed us to be with others. He designed us to be with other people. So the systems that are being created now are actually leading to the exact opposite. And then just to finish off, he goes on to say how we can make detours help us to become better people, and that it's our choice. We can decide what we want to do. And also we can make decisions on how we want people to treat us. For example, the first time I left the One campaign, I left because everyone was leaving. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to be doing this by myself. And then I decided to go back and help and see how things went. But this time I made a final decision because the corruption is not being acknowledged. Where the failures are is not being acknowledged. And it's this rosy pictures being painted of Africa with a growing population and the investments going there, and Canada's missing out, and it's not the case. There are Nigerians being killed by the day. Boko Haram is causing chaos. Christians are under attack. And when I started with this one campaign, I started with it because there was a need. People had need for aid. People had need for help. Now the black leaders are saying they don't want it. They're going to do it on their own. They're working together and they don't want aid. So if they don't want it, why am I going to sit here and push and waste my time and make my efforts known and use my voice, and other people are going to benefit and not Zimbabwe? Because that's what happened. Zimbabwe didn't get any aid in the last few years. So we basically have to look at where is our fear and how is that fear holding us back? Is it ignorance? Is it things that we don't know which can lead to increased fear? Is it learning from experience? And we can replace that fear with action. But when we are in an environment like Canada is in, we don't take action because we know that the smallest mistake will lead to the greatest punishment. I'll be accused of lying to the police if I didn't understand something, or other people won't tell the truth, and they'll put me in jail. Instead of getting the bankers the mental help that they need, sending them for psychiatric assessments, stopping the corruption, they'll send me. They'll take me and summon me to the police station. So why should I take action? For anyone. For the one campaign, for the church, why should I do it? Because at the end of the day, they told me what they're going to do. They're going to take me and leave me in Sunnybrook and nobody's going to come and visit me. So why should I? I'd rather move forward with my life and focus on building up my own wealth, getting a job, and do what everybody else does. When they come and ask me, do you know what happened? Say, I can't remember. I don't know. Because that's what is happening in Canada. People know. People can remember, but they don't want to tell the truth. They would rather let me go to jail or let me go and sit in Sunnybrook than tell the truth. Until what happens is what happened with Wits getting involved, with the investigative journalists, and if they hurt me, that's why Wits arranged that conference. Because they hurt me, and I did a lot of good for Wits here. So Wits exposed them. Those Panama Papers came out because of Wits and because of me. So if you think that nobody cares about me, you're wrong. Because I will take it to Wits again if I have to, and they will do the same thing again. So be very careful with how you treat me. And even this environment, I was called it delusional because I believe in prayer. Well, is your plan working? Your plan for the environment, your COP30 and your papers and all your books that you've released, is it working? So think very carefully before you criticize me and classify me as delusional. Because the prayers and what I'm saying has existed from the time of Jesus. It's over 2,000 years old. And if you don't believe in the resurrection, please don't go to church. Don't make a hypocrisy of the Catholic Church. Don't make a hypocrisy of the breaking of bread. Don't go to church. Because that is the main thing. It's the main thing. So stop hurting me, get on with your life, and don't go to church. And then he's just given examples that we can take, we can reflect, what can we learn from our experiences, what is the bigger picture, and we can write out our thoughts, we can journal. And whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, what Canada is creating is pure evil. With promoting MAID, with treating people like me like we're shit, putting us into minimum wage, not giving us opportunities to own homes, to progress, to come up in life. You think the black leaders are stupid? They're not. They don't want that aid because with that aid comes strings. There are strings attached to it. That's why they don't want it. Because the governance that the Canadians want and that the West wants puts them into more debt and into more poverty. That's why they don't want it. Now they finally got the African Development Bank and all of the structures in place. Now IMF and all of them want to go in and bring in their governance. And they don't want that, and I don't blame them. There's corruption here, just like there's corruption in Africa. And that's why I'm not going to stick my neck out again. I'm not. Because it kills my mother to see what people do to me. When I need the help, then it's always, they make me cry, they make me beg before they give me any help. That's how I get treated. And it's not right. It's inappropriate and it's not right.